I think the tragedy of modern marketing is more than 90% of marketers never have a strategic day in their lives. They live in the tactical bushfires that surround them, and they don't even know what they're missing. Learn strategy. Learn to have the discipline to have a strategic plan, which really is only about targeting, positioning, and objectives. That's really what it means. Have those done before you even touch communications or product development or distribution. What is your strategy?
The fundamentals matter. Strategy before tactics. Let's start with a simple test. What does your brand stand for? Can you articulate it in 4 words or less without using purpose, innovative, or unique? I'm pretty sure many CMOs would struggle with this simple exercise. And here's the problem. We're entering an era where AI can execute faster than ever. But if you don't know where or why you're going, speed just gets you lost faster. Today's guest has built a career calling that tension out. Mark Ritson has worked inside the high-stake boardrooms of some of the world's biggest brands, such as LVMH and Donna Karan. And when he's not advising top-tier companies, he's training the next generation of marketers through his mini MBA. His message is clear. It's time to get back to the fundamentals of marketing. If you're trying to build something that lasts, not just something that performs in the moment, this is your reset. Grab a notebook. Today, we're going back to school. Here's my conversation with Mark. Mark, we're here in London. We have the red bus to prove it. Welcome to Frontier CMO. Thrilled to be talking with you. You're an outsider, insider of the marketing community. Just give me a sense of what's the state of marketing today, and answer any which way you will.
It's a perfect time for me to answer the question. The reason I'm in London is I partnered with Ipsos to do a very interesting piece of research. We surveyed a representative sample of marketers in the US, UK, Canada, Australia. And Ipsos asked them a bunch of questions about how they felt about AI and other stuff. And I slipped in 10 questions that are basically sub-undergraduate knowledge questions about marketing, with a single hypothesis, which is I don't think many marketers know much about marketing. And so sure enough, what we discovered, and I'm telling you, these are the world's most obvious questions. What does positioning mean? What are the 4 Ps? What does above the line mean? So, we really are talking about...
I know 2 of those.
Well, that's good. That's good. We found that, 70% of marketers can't pass a basic test of marketing. So, only about 50% of them knew what above the line meant or what positioning was. And it's not, do you believe in positioning? It's just, what is it, So I then looked at the data and said, why is it so bad? And the answer is dead simple. We checked every variable, B2B, B2C, size of company, gender, age, seniority. None of them are significant. The significant explanatory variable is, do you have any training in marketing? Yes or no? And if you have training in marketing in America, you're 6 times more likely to know the answers. And of course, this is screamingly obvious, except to marketers who have built a propaganda that says you don't need marketing training to work in marketing. And what we've created successfully, I think, over the last 20 years is the least trained profession in the professional world, and an army of marketers who don't know anything about the thing that they do. And I really feel like we're on the cusp, especially with AI, of a marketing apocalypse, because the levels of knowledge are getting so poor. Why do they think we're not very smart? I think the main answer is because we're not very smart, at least when it comes to our own discipline. So there were audible gasps when we presented it in America. And today in London, we had a similar response. It's a disciplinary shit show of the highest order. Yeah?
And the results, so you've been pretty tough on America having lost its way from a marketing perspective.
Yes.
And is it worse in your data than the UK, or was it?
Disappointingly, no. So I was really looking forward to the idea that American marketers, who at least anecdotally are really off the pace now, they are just as bad as the British. But I have to say, having spent, I grew up in America in terms of marketing, and I was trained out there, and I worked there for about 10 years. when I was there, which is literally 30 years ago, they were so far ahead and they set the pace. It was incredible to go there and see the difference. So I think...
So can you just define what that is? What was happening in America 10, 20 years ago that was setting the pace, and what is not happening now?
I'll give you a good example, and it's certainly not, I don't want to give them a hard time. University of Chicago, possibly one of the top 5 universities, certainly schools of business. If you look at their faculty, not only do they not have anyone that works in marketing anymore, they have people that have no qualifications in marketing, teaching marketing. And it's not good enough. It's great you're an economist or you're a mathematician or a modeler, but you can't be teaching MBAs because you don't know anything yourself about the discipline. So that wasn't there 30 years ago. You went to Wharton because the professors teaching marketing knew more about marketing than anyone on the planet.
There is sort of the marketing theory, which I try and keep abreast of. And one of the things we've uncovered and learned is what we call the 2-voice model, right? Mm-hmm. This notion of use creators. When creators represent your brand in their authentic voice, really powerful. When we run those creator-led fronted ads with our own traditional classic ads,
yes,
much higher performance.
From the creators.
Both sides. They work together in concert.
Interesting.
When you just run creator ads or you just run your regular ads, or when you run both together, they amplify each other. And
Can we talk about that? Because that's super important.
It's super really interesting. But the challenge is we learned that on our own, right?
Yeah.
We didn't have a marketing professor or and a lot of the theory tends to be up here.
Totally agree.
So that 2-voice model really works. Anyone can use it, and we validate it with other customers.
First of all, the thing you're talking about, for me, the synergy of different channels is at the heart of something we often miss. It's happening right now with creators. I've always talked about it as A times B is greater than 2A or 2B. If you take any 2 channels, and I mean any 2.
Right.
We know from the old TV debate and YouTube made this point very, very successfully. If you take a bit of your money out of TV and you put it into YouTube, not all of it, but you run them together, it will invariably be more effective. Yeah. And I've seen it in almost any combination of anything, which runs against sort of scale economics.
Yeah.
So first of all, you're right. And that's a key point, by the way, about media neutrality, diversity, integration, synergy effects. And my God, we need it right now. I mean, the CEO of Unilever, who I'm still bemused by, So as the CEO of of one of the big marketing companies, to come in and say, big brand advertising is dead, this literal quote, it's now all about creators.
Yeah, I saw that.
Is to completely and utterly miss this thing you're talking about and this concept of integrated marketing communications that we've had for 25 years. Diversity isn't just a woke concept. It works, right? So for me, I had this exact conversation this morning. We keep rediscovering this point because we don't have the knowledge of marketing and history that would have told you back in the days of TV and radio, you could have been sat there smoking a cigarette with your suit on. You would have made the same point. You know what I mean? We made the same point when, YouTube came along with TV. Yeah. So it's a great discovery, but I would still say to you, if the theorists of advertising and marketing had made their stuff more democratic, you would have spotted it. It's not your fault. It is absolutely the fault of the institutions that have, overcomplicated things and stayed too high. I totally agree.
So the CEO of Unilever, he made that pronouncement,
yes,
I think, with the hiring of their new CMO. And I read you wrote an article on it. And there is one counter thought here, which is leadership is about sort of focus and repetition.
Yeah.
And I took it as when the CEO says we're all about influencers now. He wasn't saying we're all about creators now. He wasn't just saying that's it and nothing else. But he has to say it loudly, has to say it declaratively.
To move the pendulum.
Just move the pendulum, because otherwise it's like every level from CEO to CMO to VP to person making decision on an individual campaign, you kind of lose like 50% of your sort of ability to influence things.
I think that's fair if it wasn't that Unilever have form here, right?
Yeah. This podcast is called Frontier CMO.
Yes.
Give me in a couple of sentences, if you are aspiring to be a CMO in the audience right now, or if you are an actual CMO, what are the 1, 2, or 3 things that you absolutely should be getting up tomorrow morning and doing, or make sure you're really doing?
There's really only 2, I think. The first is practicing market orientation, most important concept in marketing, most important thing a CMO does. They remember that ultimately it's not what you think or your team thinks or your CEO thinks. All power and all money comes from the consumer. And your superpower as a CMO is knowing who they are, knowing what they think, and knowing what they do. It's bringing the voice of the consumer in. So the first thing is walk the streets, use the data, get dirty in the market. Every day you spend in head office, you learn less and less about your brand and your company. And then the second one is strategy before tactics. I would say 9 times out of 10, what lets a senior marketer down is they jump to tactics and they never had a strategy. And I think the tragedy of modern marketing is more than 90% of marketers never have a strategic day in their lives. They live in the tactical bushfires that surround them, and they don't even know what they're missing. Learn strategy. Learn to have the discipline to have a strategic plan, which really is only about targeting, positioning, and objectives. That's really what it means. Have those done before you even touch communications or product development or distribution. What is your strategy?
The fundamentals matter. Strategy before tactics.
Mm-hmm.
I do see out in the world people using media, consuming things in such new ways. And I just wonder, at a certain point, does the stretching of how people behave actually break any of the fundamentals? Or are they immutable?
It's really interesting. I think at the strategic level, the answer is no.
So even in an AI world,
we still have to ask the same 3 questions, which is, where am I going to play? Targeting. What do I want to do? Positioning. And what is my plan here? What are my objectives? Yeah. So I can't envisage a world where that isn't still the dominant framework for strategy.
Yep.
Where I think it does get a bit more spaghetti-ish is in the tactical world, because that's spinning at such a rate. The only thing I would say to younger marketers who are convinced this is the era of massive changes, you just haven't been along that far so far. If you've been through the 90s and noughties, you would have found just the same amount of transition going on. It's just you haven't experienced it yet. You know, the evolution of TV. I'm sure when TV eclipsed radio, that was a big moment.
The programmatic era, the
programmatic
era, DTC era,
the arrival of websites. Yeah. So, we've been experiencing this tactical metabolism for a long time. It's still going on. And that's the place where, yes, it's true that we will always have to be tactically agile. And when I talk to brands, I often say to them, strategically, I think you need agility like a hole in the head. Because strategic agility is another word for not being strategic. Hold the wheel. But when we get to tactics, I think agility is a really useful skill, and being able to move and change and flex. So I think thinking about it in those disparate ways, strategy is unchanging. Tactical execution is always changing. It's a helpful way to structure it.
And fundamentally, if you're close to your customer, if you're getting dirty in the market, as you talk about, you see why those tactics are changing,
yes.
Those behaviors are changing, and then you just have to adapt yourself.
And obviously the consumer is constantly changing too, but the need for market orientation and understanding and research and empathy is, again, a marketing fundamental that remains eternal.
So you've trained 40,000 marketers through your
40,000 so far.
40,000 marketers through your mini MBA.
60 countries.
Congratulations. And you just sold the business, or relatively recently, to scale it up even further, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Just as you think about change in media consumption, change in consumer behavior, change in AI, what are the skills that marketers actually need to maintain and grow versus what is less important today than perhaps 10 years ago or 20 years ago?
Yeah, it's on everyone's mind right now. I think the number that I have in mind for AI is just 65%. I think that's the proportion of marketers and marketing. The Anthropic data, I think, is pretty accurate, that will be ultimately taken over by AI. It's not 0, it's not 100, it's 60. It's 2/3 of our industry. So what does that leave us with? I think it leaves us with 2 things in particular. It leaves us with strategy. So you have to know what you're doing before you make these tools work. The analogy I use is AI is an incredibly fast racehorse, the fastest racehorse we've ever seen.
Right.
But if you get someone that hasn't ridden before or even been trained in riding to ride that horse, it's going to end very badly.
Yeah.
So I don't think you need to be trained in AI. I think that's a nonsensical idea. The nature of AI is it does not require you to be trained in it. I think you need to be trained in strategy and the big picture of marketing so you can operate AI and understand the right questions. That's the first piece. The second bit that I think is going to be crucial for us is we still need managers. In any vision of an AI marketing future, someone ultimately has to manage the plan, has to make the case for budget, to explain the rationale upstairs. So I think we'll see, and we're already seeing it, junior marketers are an endangered species. And we'll see a constriction over the next 10 years, less and less jobs there. We'll see managers and marketers moving less between roles because they sense the constriction going on. So we'll see people, far less mobility. When we come out of this as a smaller, tighter, maybe more effective discipline, I think the men and women left standing are the ones with strategy. So the lesson for people is, sure, learn AI, but understand marketing, get the big picture, learn how to be a manager and a strategist, because those people will just be even more valuable, I think, as we move forward. And I'm relatively certain of that. I don't know what's going to happen, but I can't envisage how AI would take that part of marketing out.
So I'm actually a little more bullish than I have been. And part of that is because I meet with a lot of CMOs, and I feel like we're at the end of the beginning, 3 years into this sort of AI transformation where there's an inflection moment. And what we're seeing with Google, with Gemini, is that it's actually empowering people, not just as a replacement. And most of the C-suite conversation is about AI as subtraction. Just do it cheaper. Just do it with less people. And what I'm actually starting to see and hearing positively, and we're seeing in our own work inside of Google, is that, and I'll use Tony Stark, brilliant technical mind, put him in the Iron Man suit, and all of a sudden he's a superhero. When we actually put Gemini and we put some of the Nano Banana and VO in the hands of our marketing teams, they take these brilliant Stanford, Cambridge graduates who are incredibly talented, take away the drudgery from their work, and actually they become superheroes.
Yeah.
And that's the exciting part. Now, obviously, I get your analogy about that you've got to understand where you're directing your repulsor rays and that sort of stuff. But it's actually the notion of AI as a growth engine, ability to do things you've not been able to do before, both creatively and from a business growth perspective, is actually, I'm looking forward to getting past that subtraction. It's actually into the addition part.
I totally agree with you. I mean, it's funny, we've been putting a lot of projections into AI. What happens to our training revenues? We're growing, but not if the number of marketers reduces. But every scenario we put in there tells us the same thing. There will be less marketers in the future to train, but the ones left will want training more and want that big picture more. And it's actually, for us, in almost every scenario we run, and we use synthetic data quite a lot now. On one hand, we will have less marketers, but on the other, better marketers doing better marketing.
I'm hoping we get past this subtraction phase. And I'm actually really excited by the creativity and the opportunity that AI is creating. And actually AI just being absorbed back into sort of the mothership. In the same way that social and digital like digital agencies, and now it's all just got subsumed back in, and everyone is digital, and it's like the way of breathing.
That's a great analogy. If we can get to that place where, and I think we'll be there pretty soon, AI becomes so implicit in everything. We'll never hear the words AI ever again. And even these brands, I think they're going to disappear. This discussion of ChatGPT, it's going to be the pipes that connect ultimately humans to tasks and things. I think it is an astonishing period that you and I will get to see, right?
And I have a front row seat working inside of Google.
You do.
Gemini is really doing some remarkable things. Some of the announced. Anyway, it's pretty exciting. Okay, so you teach classes on brand strategy, on all this sort of stuff. So let me just play this up, because let's go back 15 years in time. Walmart is the biggest player in the category by far.
Yes.
And they have owning the most important criteria. Always low prices, always.
Always low prices.
And they're never changed now. In the same way that Verizon has just been like, it's the network. It's just always, they just continue with that, right?
Yeah.
Target isn't as cheap. It just isn't. It can't compete on price. So they went for a positioning around style, younger aesthetic, cool, and all that sort of stuff. And honestly, it worked for a lot of audiences. So you're not advising they shouldn't have done that.
No.
So what went wrong then?
Two things. So first of all, give Walmart a bit more credit, right? Because you're right. Always low pricing was their mantra for 30 years. And then the smartness of those guys was to say, actually, that's a feature. Always low prices. It's true. It's a feature of Walmart. But actually, remember, Walmart weren't doing that well 20 years ago on the back. They were doing well on low value categories. But a lot of the demographics weren't going. And they were smart enough to do proper positioning, which is to go, why don't we not go away from that, but why would it change the feature of always low prices into something a little bit better, a benefit of the feature? Hence that really powerful new positioning, which is save money. That's the next step up from lower prices, and then go one more up. And what are you going to do with saving money? Live better. I think it's one of the great bits of positioning of the last 20 years. It looks the same, but it's 2 rungs up the benefit ladder, and it's therefore 100 times more powerful. But you're right, they stayed within their position. So what did Target do? Clearly, absolutely correctly, you're not going to go against the gorilla in terms of strength. You know what I mean? You can't beat them at that game. So what you have to do is go back to the board and say, right, what have we got, relatively speaking, that is a core strength of our brand that the competitor can't match us on, that the consumer still wants, and perhaps wants even more, or some of them want really more. And you're absolutely right. They got it right. They went with style. They did a bunch of collections that were democratizing fashion and premiumness. Yeah. But what happened was somebody took their foot off that pedal. The minute we get into purpose, it's awfully generic. It switches off at least half of the population more often than not. But it's all about the company, and therefore it's dreary and it's not positioning. And the opportunity cost of not being able to say, hey, this is what we do for you. You know, Colgate talking about, you know, how they feel about coronavirus. What do you do to my teeth? Do you know what I mean? Like, what's the impact on my teeth? That opportunity cost became expensive very quickly. And I'm glad to say we're almost through it now. But my goodness, it was a long 10 years.
So if you're a marketer listening to this pod and you're at your brand, what is a shortcut like set of questions you would ask yourself right now, whether the brand I'm working on right now has a positioning that is actually a positioning?
Great point. I'd say 3 things. 1, if it's more than a page, it's pointless. If you look at how Kit Kat do it, which is my favorite brand, it's all done on a page. If you've only got 2 or 3 brain cells in the consumer's head, the minute you start building pyramids and keyholes and decks and brand books, you've completely lost the plot.
I've had bow ties.
Oh, bow ties, perfect. Keyholes. You know, you're throwing shit against a wall, nothing's going to stick there, right? So too much. So first of all, tightness. The second thing is the most important thing in your brand positioning are the presence of your distinctive brand assets, because 70% of the game is salience. So before we get to what the brand stands for, what are the 4 or 5 brand codes, distinctive brand assets? You've got your logo. There are 2, 3, 4 other things. Like I worked on Sephora for many years. You know, I worked on the brand. We did the original positioning work when it really grew up. And the most important thing for Sephora was, yes, our logo, calpinage, which is black and white stripes in fancy French terms, a touch of red. And these codes made Sephora look like Sephora and come to mind in a mall or in an ad. Yep. So you start with that. So the second thing is, have you got 4 or 5 distinctive brand assets in there? Because they're more important.
And then, okay, so are you actually using them versus
show me your palette. If you don't have a palette, we're not going to paint in it. You know, you're going to look very generic. And then we get to our positioning. I'm going to give you an arbitrary rule, which is there's only probably room for 2, maximum 3 things in there. In the case of Walmart, there's 1, really, maybe 2. You know, we're going to save you money so you can live better. It's kind of the same thing, right? The minute you get 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12, 15 things in there, a brand personality and a brand framework and a brand purpose, it becomes completely empty. So are there 1, 2, 3 things that you're going to position on? And these are the things you want the consumer to think when she thinks about you.
There's something about founders and founder companies. And it's interesting because a lot of the examples of these great brands who've got these great brand purposes, Kit Kat, Walmart, in part it's because they've stuck with it for decades and decades. Avis, we try harder, that sort of stuff. But there is a moment where the founder, if the founder isn't quite, the founder knows it, feels it, they have to be able to translate it into sort of the transition. So just talk about the way you experience that.
So I worked a lot with French. I was trained by Americans. I worked a lot with French companies. And one of the things you learn from the French approach, which is very good, is you have to understand the history and the founder. And what you find every single time is the personality and life experience of a founder is imbued into the brand to this day. It might be there because of the distinctive brand assets. You know, I'll give you a good example. I worked for many years on Hennessy cognac. Richard Hennessy.
It's a good account to work on.
It's maybe the best of all, right? And Richard Hennessy was a a soldier. He was very good at it. He was a fantastic soldier. And then found himself in France, no more wars, and basically started growing eau de vie and became this phenomenal success with cognac. But that aggression and focus is part of Hennessy's approach. And Richard Hennessy was also unusual because he had soldiered across many different countries. And that's in Hennessy to this day. If you look at how Hennessy plays the game in Paris versus Tokyo versus Shanghai versus New York City, you will see 4 different brands. But none of it is inconsistent. It can blend and play different games in different places. So you have a literal link back to the founder.
So just going back to something you were saying, I looked at my Google Calendar. Last year, I took meetings with sales representatives from Meta, Snap, Amazon, Apple, TikTok. 75 meetings last year across all of them, right? One a week or more, right? And one of the things which is really fascinating to your point about the founder is you can see the founders in the sales teams, the way they carry themselves. And it's kind of a fun little exercise if you work on the media side or work on the marketing side. Every time you meet with someone from Meta, or you meet someone from Amazon. There's an
echo back to the original.
100%. And you can see it as a pattern.
It's so good.
It's really, really fascinating. And then if you can see it there, that means I think our customers see it as well. I'm not quite sure if they see it in the ads and the way that works because we sort of smooth that over, but it's interesting. You can't help be who your DNA is.
And there's a moment of genius, right? So they have this God-given thing. You know, when you see it close up, it is something it is the closest we get to magic in commerce, to see a founder who's created something, the jobs thing. It's a form of magic, and it's something, I think it's something gorgeous about branding, is that link back to a man or a woman is always there. And the stories that are in the history will, exactly to your point, will be borne out right now.
So, okay, I'm going to ask a slightly controversial question here.
Please.
Predict where the Apple brand is going to be in 20 years' time.
I love this. I can tell you. I think Apple, if it's done well, will become the next luxury brand. It's already moving that way. And to understand why, you have to understand that all luxury brands didn't begin as luxury brands. I'm wearing and you're wearing a chronograph. These things were high tech 150 years ago when Patek Philippe first made a wristwatch. People were like, oh my God, what is that? That's high tech. Gradually, the categories mature and ossify, and then we get luxury. Champagne is luxurious because it used to explode. It was a complete revolution of consumption. So I think what you see with luxury brands is innovation that ossifies into luxury. And if you think about what Apple is, it's iconic. It has this incredible historic founder and story. I think it needs another 50 years to cook.
I'm a practitioner of marketing.
You are.
And the gap between the theory and the practitioner, I'd love to hear from you. There have been some moments where you were trying to do the right creatively, commercially, long-term branding thing, long and the short of it, and the politics of the organization, the bureaucracy, got in the way. And what's your...
My best one.
When did that happen? What did you do about it?
I mean, the best one is probably my biggest failure in my consulting life. And it was partly politics, but it was really my fault. We were working on Loewe, which is this wonderful, wonderful brand.
Loewe, I don't know what it is. What is
Loewe is a Spanish Madrid leather goods brand.
Okay, so you really fucked it up, right?
I really fucked it up. Well, it was, yeah. It's in Spain, it's bigger than Hermes or Chanel.
Wow. Okay, good to know.
But never escaped the Spanish thing. It was a very minor brand. And I saw the problem. Literally, you would see Loewe bags everywhere, and they're very easy to spot. But every time on the arm of a beautiful 65-year-old Spanish woman. And every time you saw a 25-year-old, 35-year-old Spanish woman, it was with Chanel or Vuitton or Gucci. So the problem was apparent.
Okay.
And I pushed with be more radical. You've got to break this up, We have to do it. And so in the end, we came up with an astonishing campaign, sort of metrosexual, transsexual, gorgeous people, dressed them all in Loewe, gave them all Loewe bags and filmed a new Loewe campaign in Madrid. And it was sensational. It was phenomenal. These kids have Mohicans. It was going to be it. And then the president rang me up and she said, we're on the news. We're on the Spanish news. I'm like, well, that's good news. And she was like, no, not really. It was like, what have these people done to Loewe? It was like, the number 2 story on the news that night.
Right.
And our YouTube channel went from, 62 views to 600,000 views in 2 days, but not in a good way. And basically, it was a disaster. And it was my fault because I pushed them to a place of transgression where the company wasn't ready for it, but the market wasn't ready for it either. And I think it was my first experience, not just of really bad failure, but also that sometimes the theory, if it's not properly executed within the constraints of culture, will be disastrous.
And that you hadn't done the real market research to understand how far you could move the brand at that moment.
I think it was worse than that. I think I hadn't properly understood the thing I was meant to be an expert of. Loewe is a proud Spanish, incredibly noble brand, and I pushed it too much. And I'm a big fan of Tom Ford for many, many reasons. But one of the best is, he's so articulate about things like this. And of course, he fixed Gucci which one of the many things he's done. And his great quote was, "The right thing at the wrong time is still the wrong thing." There's so much wisdom in that sentence, which unfortunately I did not have at the time.
The right thing at the wrong time is still the wrong thing. Yeah. You sparked a thought in me here. So in marketing, we have our memes, we have our narratives, we have the things that we think we've learned from a situation and invariably turn out to be not true. So I'm going to throw a couple of brand names at you.
Sure.
Tell me one thing that marketers should be learning from this brand.
Okay.
And maybe one thing that they shouldn't be learning.
Okay.
So I'll just say, and Nike.
Well, there's 2 diametrically opposed lessons there. Don't become obsessed with performance because it leads to disaster. And do remember that ultimately brand building is the catalyst of everything. Yeah, I mean, that's a zero sum there, but they were the 2 great lessons. It's a stunning moment. I think one more with Nike. It's really quick to fuck up a brand. It takes a long time to rebuild a fucked up brand, as I think, unfortunately, they're now discovering. And they're doing everything right. Screwing things up takes about, 6 or 7 quarters. Recovering from that damage will take them a decade.
Yeah, I don't know.
Initially, learn from, respond to a crisis in the classic way. Which is the story of Tylenol's poisoning crisis in the 80s. So, respond fast and follow the textbook. But sometimes the ultimate response to a crisis can be to do nothing, which is what they did with the Trump issue more recently. If you notice, Tylenol didn't respond or didn't engage. Sometimes the thing that you should do is nothing. And when I used to teach case studies at MIT, we'd have a board full of, what do you do about this challenge? It's only the smartest MBA that will put his hand up or her hand up and say, maybe we should do nothing. Maybe we'll just wait because this will play out. I think that needs more attention, and Tylenol is a great lesson there.
I like that. Procrastination is a superpower.
Sometimes there's a value there.
I can see that. Guinness.
I mean, I think we learn 2 things. We learn positively the power of distinctive brand assets. So why is Guinness the best-selling beer in the United Kingdom now? Would you believe that?
I saw that recently. It's remarkable. So
incredible from a niche brand, but also it's literally the world's most distinctive drink. When you're, 4/5 black and 1/5 white on the top, when you have that incredible look, it shows you that distinctiveness is so powerful. We also learned from Guinness, though, that this is a huge one for me. You can't change your category. The category is the most important thing. You can be in the number 3 or number 4 brand. If you're in a great category, everything's going to be just fine. Yeah. But you can be the number 1 brand in a shitty category in cutlery or, in this case, alcoholic beverages. Life's going to be tough. So I think with Guinness, the lesson is also, through no fault of their own, they're in a shitty category because drinking isn't going to recover.
Okay. So that was fun. I enjoyed doing that. It's fun. It's fun to.
That went quick.
Mark, we're going to end. I just want to ask you a couple of signal and noise questions.
Please do.
These are like quick, almost rapid fire, right?
Yes.
And so, Mark, signal or noise? CEOs who can't eat their product properly shouldn't be CEOs.
Noise. But good noise, entertaining noise.
wildly entertaining. The whole Archburger launch has been wildly successful.
Well, and back to my point on salience, right? The minute I saw that video, I thought, market orientation, he doesn't realize that's bad. Second, it will do the brand absolutely no harm, and that product is going to fly, because as long as people see it, they're going to want to eat the burger. So yeah, I think it's a great example.
So I met with the global leadership, the CEO in Mountain View last week, and I wanted to start my session going, oh, I may have bitten off more than I can chew here. But
that's not to that.
I burgered out, chickened out.
Too big a client, I'm afraid. For
yes. They're such smart people there. Okay. Signal or noise. TV is dead. Streaming is king.
Noise. I mean, TV from a consumer point of view is the thing on the wall. What goes on it is relatively unimportant. And I've been obsessed for a long time with the idea that we talk about digital and traditional in this industry like it means something, while I watch my 9-year-old flicking between YouTube on the TV and back to terrestrial TV with absolutely no clue what those words would mean, almost as if the whole thing doesn't matter. A TV is the thing on the wall, the end.
Yep. Billion hours of watch time of YouTube every day on the biggest TV in the home. So,
and the consumer doesn't care or know about the difference. You know,
I get that. Okay, signal or noise. The term digital marketing should be deprecated.
I'm not exaggerating. I've been saying this for 15 years, so I feel like I'm a smarty pants, but it's still not gone away. So maybe I'm stupid. You know, it's hanging around. It makes no sense. We don't have any non-digital media, as you know, right? And yet we have these digital marketers who are still positioned as digital agencies. It has to come to an end soon, but not yet.
Okay, signal or noise. Brands which make a statement that they won't use AI generative humans in their marketing materials.
Oh, that's signal. Yeah, signal. I mean, it's a signal that these companies are idiotic. I think it's, it has to be done in the right way. But the idea that you would just choose to operate without it and do the organic path, good luck,
PetSmart, right?
Yeah.
Won't put fake pets in their real ads. And I understand that.
That makes
right?
sense.
And maybe in 10 years' time when the AI is so everywhere.
But why bother when it costs you $5 to put a dog in an ad rather than animate it with CGI, right?
I've heard shooting with animals and kids is not easy.
Yeah, true. Neither is developing an AI, Labrador. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Final one. And you'll get this, but the audience may not.
Okay.
But
as long as I get it, that's fine.
Yeah. Signal or noise. The Mark Ritson Ritbot, your digital twin that you created, is a better teacher than Mark Ritson, the original.
Yeah, it's Signal. So someone created it and I gave him permission to do it. It was the strangest feeling. I've experienced this ahead of most people. I have a digital version of me, which is the digital Mark who teaches the mini MBA. And I then go and meet a lot of the marketers later or companies. And the disappointment, which is, palpable when the real Mark turns up, who's slightly more hungover and late, grayer and fatter than the more coiffured version digitally. And now there's a couple of AI things where I look really good, right? This feeling that the avatar is your superior has been with me for 2 or 3 years. And it is a very, very strange feeling. So on the one hand, you're competing. On the other hand, it's still you. And I have no real sense yet of how I should feel about it. But there's definitely a palpable sense in my career that digital me is better than organic me and will always be better and is getting better and better. And I really still don't know what it means. But I'm mortal, obviously, and getting older by the day. And my digital equivalent is just getting better and smarter and faster and speaking German and Japanese. We have a Mandarin version of me teaching as we speak 400 Chinese marketers. What are we to think? I mean, do you have any advice?
I'm aware of this sort of whole concept. Someone cloned my voice and of 5 minutes of me talking, not even 5 minutes, and it's spot on me, which made me think about my banking apps and like my voice is my password. But I relate to the medicine, right? And look, I can see in the world of medicine, doctors are becoming so much better at spotting cancers and all that sort of stuff. And
because of it.
Because of AI, because it's actually, and it never forgets. So once it's worked out how to pick with 99% accuracy, it's only get to 99.1, 9.2. That's That's how I've seen it. It's like the upside is really, really good here. So I'm choosing to see the positives here.
You're very good on this, I have to say. I'll give you it's the best closing story I can give you. So we're testing whether an AI version of me teaching in Germany is a huge market potentially for us. I can't speak any German. So we're testing out now the German avatar. And a couple of weeks ago, I'm sat having coffee in Sydney and they finished the test. And I'm like, oh, fuck, right, here we go, right? So I sort of excused myself, went and sat over on the corner of this restaurant, got my phone out, downloaded the class of me, my avatar twin teaching the thing in German. I said, well, let's see. And it began, and it took me about, 45 seconds to realize, because I don't speak any German, I had no idea whether it was any good or not. And it's that moment of total and utter worthlessness. You know what I mean? As a human, I'm like, what am I going to judge it on? Do you know what I mean? It looks okay, but I don't speak German. I'm the inferior of the avatar now,
It's still a clone of you. It's still parroting you. It's not extemporizing and making new concepts, you hope. But if your sales go up in Germany, you'll know. Mark, thank you so much for being on Frontier CMO.
My pleasure.
Before we wrap, I want to leave you with 3 takeaways to carry into your week. Think of these as your field notes from the frontier. First, learn the fundamentals, not the buzzwords, not the trends, the actual discipline, the craft of marketing. Because if you don't understand marketing, you're not building, you're improvising. Mark Ritson believes this is what most of the industry is doing right now. Second, strategy before tactics. It sounds basic, but it's rarely practiced. If you're jumping into channels, campaigns, or creative before you've made clear decisions on targeting, positioning, and objectives, you're just creating motion, and frankly, commotion, not progress. Third, get out of the building. Data matters, AI matters, tools matter, but none of it replaces actually understanding your customer. The brands that win aren't the ones with the most dashboards, they're the ones who bring their customer voice into decisions being made. And maybe that's the through line here. Getting back to the basics isn't a step backward, it's how you move and stay ahead. This is the work at the frontier. Be sure to follow, rate, and review Frontier CMO on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you for joining us. For research, case studies, and tools to help you lead through this next platform shift, visit thinkwithgoogle.com, where we track the signals, cut through the noise, and share what leaders are actually testing in real time. We'll be back next episode with another leader operating at the frontier. Until then, stay sharp and stay out front.